Weak people are not weak because they lack muscles, money, or status. They are weak because they have surrendered the most valuable thing a human being possesses: the will to become more than they are. The tragedy of weakness is not that it suffers. The tragedy is that it learns to love its suffering. It turns its chains into jewelry and then proudly displays them as virtues. Look around and you will see countless people who spend their lives waiting for permission, waiting for approval, waiting for circumstances to improve, waiting for someone to rescue them from the consequences of their own choices. They dream endlessly, but act rarely. They complain endlessly, but create nothing. They demand respect without earning it, and seek rewards without sacrifice. The weak person does not fear failure nearly as much as he fears responsibility. Failure can be blamed on fate, luck, or other people. Responsibility points directly at the mirror. Responsibility forces a person to admit that many of his limitations are self-created. And that is a truth too painful for most people to endure. The weak mind develops a remarkable talent. It learns how to transform every personal failure into someone else's crime. If it lacks success, society is unfair. If it lacks discipline, circumstances are difficult. If it lacks courage, the world is dangerous. Excuses become shields protecting the ego from reality. Yet every excuse carries a hidden price. The more excuses a person collects, the less power he possesses over his own life. A strong person asks, "What can I do?" A weak person asks, "Who can I blame?" That single difference determines the direction of an entire life. Weak people often mistake comfort for happiness. They construct lives designed around avoiding pain rather than pursuing greatness. Every challenge appears as a threat. Every obstacle becomes a reason to retreat. Every risk feels unbearable. They seek security above all else, never realizing that excessive security slowly destroys the human spirit. The eagle does not learn to fly by hiding in the nest. The warrior does not become powerful by avoiding battle. Human beings grow through resistance. Every meaningful achievement demands struggle. Yet the weak person sees struggle as evidence that he should quit. He interprets difficulty as a sign that the path is wrong, rather than a sign that growth is occurring. There is something deeply seductive about weakness. Weakness offers comfort. It whispers that you are already enough. It tells you that self-improvement is unnecessary. It assures you that your failures are not your fault. It encourages resentment toward those who achieve more. It provides emotional shelter from the harsh demands of reality. But comfort is often the most dangerous prison. The walls are invisible, which is why so few escape. The weak person secretly hates excellence. Not because excellence harms him, but because excellence exposes him. Every disciplined individual becomes a reminder of his own laziness. Every courageous individual becomes a reminder of his own fear. Every successful individual becomes evidence that greater achievement was possible all along. Instead of rising to meet that challenge, many choose resentment. They criticize those who stand higher rather than climbing themselves. They attack strength because strength reveals their unwillingness to grow. It is easier to condemn the mountain than to begin the ascent. Resentment is the favorite weapon of weakness. It allows a person to feel morally superior while remaining powerless. It creates the illusion of victory without requiring any effort. But resentment never builds. It only corrodes. It eats away at ambition, discipline, and personal responsibility until nothing remains except bitterness. The weak person often disguises fear as virtue. He calls his lack of ambition humility. He calls his indecision caution. He calls his cowardice kindness. He invents noble labels for personal limitations because the truth would be unbearable. Yet reality remains indifferent to labels. Calling fear by another name does not transform it into courage. Calling weakness humility does not make it strength. The universe rewards action, not self-deception. One of the cruelest truths about life is that potential means nothing by itself. The world is filled with people who possess talent. The world is filled with people who possess intelligence. The world is filled with people who possess dreams. Yet most accomplish little because talent without discipline is wasted, intelligence without courage is useless, and dreams without action are hallucinations. Weak people love possibilities because possibilities require nothing. Action is different. Action demands sacrifice. Action exposes flaws. Action creates the possibility of failure. That is why so many remain trapped in endless preparation. They study success without pursuing it. They admire greatness without attempting it. They consume inspiration without transforming themselves. Years pass. Opportunities vanish. Regrets multiply. Then comes another excuse. Weakness is not measured by what happens to you. It is measured by how you respond. Every human being encounters suffering. Every human being experiences loss, rejection, disappointment, and pain. These experiences are universal. The difference lies in interpretation. The weak person asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The strong person asks, "What can this teach me?" One question creates victims. The other creates growth. Life does not care about fairness. Storms do not avoid good people. Failure does not discriminate according to virtue. Reality owes nobody comfort, certainty, or success. Those who spend their lives demanding fairness will remain angry forever, because existence was never designed to satisfy human expectations. The strongest individuals understand something that weak people refuse to accept. Hardship is not merely an obstacle. It is a forge. Pressure reveals character. Difficulty uncovers hidden capacities. Adversity forces dormant strength into existence. The weak seek escape from hardship. The strong seek transformation through it. There is another uncomfortable truth. Most people prefer belonging to truth. They would rather be accepted by the crowd than stand alone with conviction. The crowd offers safety. The crowd offers validation. The crowd offers protection from criticism. But the crowd also demands conformity. Weak people obey without questioning because independent thought requires courage. It is easier to repeat popular opinions than to develop original ones. It is easier to follow established paths than to create new ones. It is easier to agree than to think. Yet every significant achievement in human history began with someone willing to stand apart. Every breakthrough required disagreement. Every act of greatness demanded independence. The weak person fears isolation because his identity depends upon approval. Remove the applause, and he no longer knows who he is. Remove the audience, and his confidence collapses. He becomes a prisoner of public opinion. A powerful individual builds his values from within. He listens to criticism without being controlled by it. He appreciates recognition without depending on it. He remains loyal to his principles, even when standing alone. Weak people seek validation. Strong people seek truth. The distinction changes everything. Many people imagine strength as aggression. They imagine power as domination. They imagine superiority as control over others. This misunderstanding creates endless confusion. Real strength is self-mastery. A man who cannot control his anger is weak, regardless of how intimidating he appears. A man who cannot resist temptation is weak, regardless of how wealthy he becomes. A man who cannot govern his impulses remains a slave, even if the world calls him successful. Weak people are ruled by moods. Strong people are ruled by purpose. Weak people act according to feelings. Strong people act according to values. Weak people abandon commitments when motivation disappears. Strong people continue long after enthusiasm fades. The greatest battles are rarely fought against external enemies. They are fought against internal chaos, laziness, fear, doubt, vanity, resentment, self-pity. These invisible forces destroy more lives than any external obstacle ever could. And self-pity may be the most destructive of them all. Self-pity feels innocent. It feels justified. It feels comforting. Yet it drains energy from action and redirects it toward complaint. It encourages a person to stare endlessly at wounds instead of building strength. It transforms temporary suffering into permanent identity. The weak person says, "Look at what happened to me." The strong person says, "Look at what I will become because of it." One remains trapped in the past. The other creates the future. Every human being faces a choice, not once, but daily. The choice between comfort and growth, between excuses and responsibility, between resentment and self-improvement, between conformity and independence, between weakness and strength. This choice cannot be delegated. Nobody can make it for you. Nobody can save you from it. The world is filled with distractions designed to keep people comfortable. Endless entertainment, endless excuses, endless opportunities to avoid confronting reality. Entire lives disappear into this fog. Decades pass without meaningful growth. Potential dies quietly, buried beneath convenience. Then comes old age. Then comes reflection. Then comes the painful realization that the greatest obstacle was never the economy, society, luck, or other people. It was fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of responsibility, fear of becoming capable, because capability carries obligations. Once you realize what you can become, remaining mediocre becomes a conscious choice. Many people would rather preserve comforting illusions than face that responsibility. But reality cannot be avoided forever. The truth arrives eventually. The truth is that weakness grows when tolerated. The truth is that courage grows when exercised. The truth is that discipline becomes easier through repetition. The truth is that suffering can either destroy a person or refine him. The truth is that nobody is coming to rescue you. The truth is that your future is being shaped right now by the habits you repeat, the standards you accept, and the excuses you tolerate. The weak person hears these words and feels offended. The strong person hears these words and feels challenged. That reaction reveals everything. Life rewards those willing to confront uncomfortable truths. It rewards those who accept responsibility, embrace struggle, reject excuses, and cultivate self-mastery. It rewards those who transform pain into strength and adversity into opportunity. The brutal truth about weak people is not that they are born weak. It is that many choose weakness every day. They choose comfort over growth. They choose excuses over accountability. They choose resentment over improvement. They choose safety over possibility. And every choice, repeated often enough, becomes a destiny. But the opposite is equally true. Every act of courage strengthens character. Every act of discipline builds power. Every act of responsibility increases freedom. Every challenge embraced expands human potential. The question is not whether weakness exists. It does. The question is whether you will nurture it or overcome it. Because in the end, strength is not a gift. It is a decision made repeatedly against resistance. And the moment a person stops making excuses, stops blaming the world, stops worshipping comfort, and begins taking complete responsibility for his existence, weakness loses its grip. That is the moment an ordinary person begins the difficult, painful, and extraordinary process of becoming powerful. And yet there is a deeper layer to weakness that few people dare to examine. Weakness is not merely a lack of strength. It is often a refusal to see. Most people spend their lives constructing comfortable illusions because reality demands too much from them. They do not want truth if truth requires change. They do not want freedom if freedom requires responsibility. They do not want greatness if greatness requires sacrifice. So they build a protective wall around themselves. Every criticism becomes an attack. Every challenge becomes oppression. Every difficult truth becomes something offensive. In this way, weakness survives not by force, but by avoidance. Observe how quickly people defend their limitations. Tell someone that his habits are destroying his future, and he will provide 100 explanations. Tell someone that his fears are preventing growth, and he will call those fears wisdom. Tell someone that his excuses are chains, and he will describe those chains as unavoidable circumstances. Human beings possess an extraordinary ability to deceive themselves. The weak simply become experts at it. They know precisely how to explain away failure. They know how to reinterpret laziness as exhaustion, indecision as careful thinking, and surrender as acceptance. They become skilled storytellers, crafting narratives that protect their self-image while slowly destroying their potential. What makes this tragedy even greater is that many weak people never realize what they are doing. They genuinely believe their own excuses. They repeat them so often that fiction becomes reality. The lie becomes more familiar than the truth. Eventually they reach a point where improvement itself feels threatening. Why? Because improvement requires the death of the old self. To become stronger, a person must abandon comforting beliefs. He must admit that many of his problems are self-created. He must acknowledge wasted years. He must confront habits that once felt safe. He must destroy the identity that weakness carefully constructed. And destruction, even when necessary, is painful. This is why transformation is rare. Most people would rather suffer within a familiar prison than risk freedom beyond its walls. The weak individual often seeks equality in the wrong places. Instead of striving upward, he wants standards lowered. Instead of becoming greater, he wants greatness diminished. Instead of elevating himself, he demands that others descend. This impulse appears everywhere. Whenever excellence emerges, weakness gathers to criticize it. Whenever someone displays exceptional discipline, exceptional courage, or exceptional achievement, there are always voices insisting that such standards are unreasonable. The weak person feels uncomfortable around excellence because excellence creates comparison. Comparison creates awareness. Awareness creates responsibility. Responsibility demands action, and action is precisely what weakness seeks to avoid. There is a silent war occurring in every society. It is not a war between nations, classes, or ideologies. It is a war between the forces that elevate humanity and the forces that encourage mediocrity. One force says, become more. The other says, remain as you are. One force demands discipline. The other promises comfort. One force embraces challenge. The other avoids risk. Every individual participates in this conflict, whether he recognizes it or not. The outcome determines the quality of his life. Weak people often worship certainty because uncertainty terrifies them. They want guarantees before acting. They want assurance before committing. They want success promised in advance. But life offers no such guarantees. The explorer crosses oceans without certainty. The creator begins without certainty. The entrepreneur risks failure without certainty. The warrior enters battle without certainty. Everything worthwhile exists on the far side of uncertainty. Yet the weak person waits endlessly for a perfect moment that never arrives. He mistakes preparation for progress. He mistakes intention for achievement. He mistakes thinking for doing. Meanwhile, years disappear. Nothing ages faster than unused potential. Consider how many dreams die before they are even tested. Not because they were impossible, but because fear convinced their owners to remain motionless. Entire futures are abandoned, not through defeat, but through hesitation. The cemetery of unrealized greatness is larger than the cemetery of failed ambition. Failure at least requires action. Failure teaches. Failure strengthens. Failure reveals reality. But hesitation teaches nothing except regret. The weak person fears mistakes so intensely that he chooses paralysis. Yet paralysis itself becomes the greatest mistake. Life belongs to those willing to risk embarrassment, criticism, rejection, and failure in pursuit of something meaningful. The weak avoid these experiences. The strong understand that they are unavoidable. There is another uncomfortable observation. Weakness often disguises itself as morality. Many people condemn ambition because they lack ambition. They condemn power because they lack power. They condemn achievement because they lack achievement. What appears to be a moral judgment is often concealed envy. This does not mean all criticism is envy. Far from it. Genuine criticism seeks truth. Genuine criticism seeks improvement. Envy seeks reduction. Truth says, rise higher. Envy says, come down here. Weakness celebrates limitations because limitations create company. If everyone remains small, nobody feels inadequate. If everyone remains average, nobody must confront their untapped potential. But greatness has never emerged from collective comfort. Every significant accomplishment begins when an individual decides that average is insufficient. That decision immediately creates tension. The moment a person commits himself to growth, he becomes different. His priorities change, his habits change, his standards change. The people around him may become uncomfortable because his transformation exposes their stagnation. This is one of the hidden costs of strength. Growth creates distance. Not everyone will celebrate your improvement. Some will resent it. Some will mock it. Some will attempt to sabotage it. Others will remind you of who you used to be because they fear who you are becoming. The weak need agreement. The strong tolerate isolation. The weak need approval. The strong endure misunderstanding. The weak need comfort. The strong accept discomfort as part of development. Every higher level of existence requires leaving something behind. Old habits, old fears, old excuses, sometimes even old relationships. The weak person clings to everything familiar. The strong person understands that growth requires sacrifice. A tree cannot reach greater heights while refusing deeper roots. A human being cannot reach greater heights while refusing greater burdens. This principle terrifies those who seek comfort above all else. They want reward without effort, knowledge without study, strength without struggle, respect without character, freedom without responsibility. But reality remains stubborn. It grants nothing of value without demanding a price. Every meaningful achievement is purchased through discipline, sacrifice, persistence, and suffering. Weak people hear this and search for exceptions. Strong people hear this and prepare for the cost. Look carefully at the habits of those trapped in weakness. They consume more than they create. They react more than they act. They complain more than they build. Their lives become endless cycles of distraction. Distraction is one of weakness's greatest allies. A distracted mind never develops depth. A distracted mind never confronts itself. A distracted mind never reaches mastery. It simply moves from one stimulation to another, seeking relief from boredom, discomfort, and self-awareness. Modern life offers endless opportunities for escape. Endless noise, endless entertainment, endless consumption. And many people eagerly surrender to it because silence is dangerous. Silence forces reflection. Reflection reveals truth. Truth demands change. Weakness fears all three. The strongest individuals periodically withdraw from noise. They confront themselves honestly. They examine their failures. They question their assumptions. They identify weaknesses without becoming defined by them. This requires courage because self-examination rarely reveals pleasant things. It reveals contradictions. It reveals hypocrisy. It reveals wasted potential. It reveals fear. But it also reveals possibility. Only those willing to confront their flaws can transform them. The weak person avoids the mirror. The strong person studies it. One remains unchanged, the other evolves. There is perhaps no greater difference between strength and weakness than the relationship each has with suffering. Weak people ask how suffering can be avoided. Strong people ask how suffering can be used. The distinction appears small, yet it changes everything. Pain is inevitable. Loss is inevitable. Disappointment is inevitable. The question is never whether these experiences will arrive. The question is what they will produce when they do. For some, suffering becomes an excuse. For others, suffering becomes fuel. For some, hardship becomes a reason to quit. For others, hardship becomes a reason to continue. The event may be identical. The outcome becomes completely different. Every challenge carries hidden possibilities invisible to those focused only on immediate discomfort. Defeat can create wisdom. Rejection can create independence. Loss can create resilience. Failure can create competence, but only if a person refuses to collapse beneath them. Weakness interprets pain as punishment. Strength interprets pain as information. And information, when understood properly, becomes power. That is why some people emerge from adversity stronger than before, while others emerge bitter, resentful, and defeated. The difference is not merely what happened to them. The difference is what they decided those events meant. Meaning shapes destiny. The weak surrender that power to circumstance. The strong claim it for themselves. And so the struggle continues within every human being, every day, every hour, every decision. The temptation of comfort remains constant. The lure of excuses remains powerful. The desire to avoid responsibility never fully disappears. Even those who become strong must continually guard against the return of weakness in new forms. So before you leave this room, ask yourself one question. What part of your life is being ruled by weakness right now? Not your neighbor's weakness. Not society's weakness. Not the weakness of people you criticize. Yours, because that is where the battle truly begins. The world does not need more excuses. It does not need more victims of comfort. It does not need more people waiting for permission to become who they were meant to be. The world belongs to those who dare to confront themselves, to those who wake up and choose discipline over desire, to those who choose responsibility over blame, to those who choose growth over comfort, to those who choose courage even when fear is screaming inside them. The brutal truth is that no one is coming to save you. No mentor can walk the path for you. No book can suffer for you. No speech can transform you. At some point, every human being stands alone before the reality of his own potential and must decide whether he will rise or remain where he is. And that decision is being made right now. Not tomorrow, not next year. Not when conditions are perfect. Right now, because every excuse you tolerate becomes a chain. Every fear you obey becomes a prison. Every responsibility you avoid becomes a burden that grows heavier with time. But every challenge you face makes you stronger. Every discomfort you embrace makes you harder to break. Every act of discipline makes you more powerful than you were yesterday. One day, your life will become the sum of the choices you repeatedly made when nobody was watching. And when that day comes, there will be only two possibilities. You will either look back and see a life spent hiding from your potential, or you will see a life forged through struggle, built through courage, and shaped by the relentless refusal to remain weak. The choice has always been yours. It is yours now, and it will be yours the moment you walk away from these words. So stop waiting. Stop blaming. Stop hiding. Stand up, Fox reality. Accepted the burden of your own existence, and become the kind of person that your fears hoped you would never have the courage to become.